TV characters get recast all the time, but it's a little less common for a series lead to be replaced between seasons. These actors weren't safe from being swapped out, even if they were in the top-billed role. The Witcher had released various fantasy novels and video games to establish its fan base prior to the Netflix series' debut in 2019, which certainly helped the show become a big hit. That said, fans were particularly drawn to Henry Cavill's interpretation of Geralt of Rivia. The star perfectly embodied The Witcher's physical acumen and compassionate nature, which is why it came as such a shock when it was announced that Cavill was leaving the show after Season 3.
The Witcher yet has died of old age, lying in bed dictating his will, Bessemer.
Everything seemed amicable, but rumors began to circulate as to why Cavill would leave such a popular show. Some believed that he was unhappy about the series deviating from the source material. We may never know for sure what happened, but after Cavill's departure was announced, Netflix revealed that Liam Hemsworth would take over as Geralt. Hemsworth affirmed his love for the character and franchise after the casting was announced, and fans will get a chance to see him in action when The Witcher Season 4 comes out sometime in 2025. Cavill hasn't done too bad for himself post-Witcher. He had arguably the best cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine, and he has a number of other exciting projects lined up with more substantial roles. Those include a series adaptation of Warhammer 40K and a live-action Voltron movie. In what is perhaps the best-known example of one lead actor being replaced by another, Dick York was swapped out after starring in 5 seasons of Bewitched. He played Darren Stevens, husband to Samantha, the latter of whom just so happens to be a witch. Darren often finds himself perturbed by Samantha's powers, usually when one of her spells goes awry and negatively impacts him somehow. By the end of the episode, they typically resolve whatever differences they're having, but by the conclusion of Season 5, there was one problem York couldn't shake. The reason Dick York left Bewitched had to do with an injury he suffered in 1959, a few years before the series first aired. Acting on the show was physically difficult for him at times, and he eventually collapsed on the set while filming. He took painkillers as a way to ease his pain, which eventually led to his dependency and addiction to taking them. As a result, Dick Sargent took over the role of Darren for the remainder of the show's run. York wasn't thrilled about having to be recast, as he said in an interview. "I thought I'd failed everybody. It was the only thing I'd started that I didn't finish. I didn't finish that show, so I felt guilty and I felt embarrassed, and I felt that I let everybody down." Playing a superhero isn't easy, as Ruby Rose can attest to. She played Kate Kane, also known as Batwoman, on the first season of the CW's show of the same name, but her character was recast for Season 2. The lead role instead shifted to a new character, Ryan Wilder, played by Javicia Leslie. The reason Rose left Batwoman came down to several factors. While shooting Season 1, she sustained a herniated disc that threatened to paralyze her, making the more action-oriented scenes difficult to film. Additionally, while it hasn't been cited as a reason for her departure, Rose also discovered that she had a latex allergy, which made wearing the Batwoman mask a challenge for her. She would remove it at the end of a long day and be covered in hives. Kate Kane eventually returned when it was revealed that the leader of the False Face Society altered her appearance to make her look more like his daughter. Wallace Day played Kate at this point, and the plot provided an easy explanation for why she looked different, at least by comic book standards.
You've got me confused with a dead girl.
No, you've got you confused with a dead girl.
Despite this twist, Leslie continued playing Batwoman for the rest of the show's run until it ended in 2022. The story of why Andy Whitfield was replaced on the Starz series Spartacus is a tragic one. Whitfield was an up-and-coming actor throughout the late 2000s when he landed the prime lead role on the historical epic. He starred in the show's first season, but in March 2010, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The prognosis was positive, and it initially appeared that Whitfield could return to the show before too long. In the meantime, Starz pursued a Spartacus spin-off prequel series called Spartacus: Gods of the Arena rather than going directly into Season 2. Whitfield's health appeared to be getting better, and in June of that year, he was declared cancer-free. Unfortunately, another checkup in September revealed that the cancer had returned, so Whitfield had to step away from the title role. Liam McIntyre took his place as Spartacus. On September 11, 2011, Whitfield died at the age of 39 due to complications from his illness. In 2015, a documentary about his illness and death titled Be Here Now was released to raise awareness of how cancer can strike anyone at any time, even someone in otherwise impressive physical condition. Lethal Weapon, the beloved action film franchise, got the small screen treatment in 2016. This time around, Damon Wayans and Clayne Crawford played the buddy cop duo of Roger Murtaugh and Martin Riggs. Unfortunately, that pairing was pulled apart due to bad on-set behavior from Crawford during the show's first 2 seasons.
The hell are you doing?
Martin Riggs. We're gonna make a great team.
When reports of Crawford creating a hostile work environment came out, he was subsequently fired from the series. Following his departure, Crawford appeared on the Drinkin' Bros podcast, admitting that he screamed at an assistant director when outside noises ruined a take. He revealed, "I shouldn't have lost it, and I felt embarrassed in the moment because I was belligerent. I was so angry." Wayans also suffered an injury from stray shrapnel during the production of an episode Crawford directed, and audio recordings leaked from the set revealed that the two got into a shouting match. Crawford apologized on Instagram, but following multiple reports of emotional abuse against various crew members, he was fired. The actor claimed that he found out about his firing from social media rather than being told directly by Warner Brothers. Sean William Scott joined the show in Season 3 as Murtaugh's new partner, Wesley Cole. It didn't matter though. Lethal Weapon was canceled after that season. This was largely due to declining ratings, although all of the behind-the-scenes drama likely didn't do it any favors. After producing the first 3 Superman movies starring Christopher Reeve and 1984's Supergirl with Helen Slater, producers Ilya and Alexander Salkind turned their attention to a Superboy TV show. Debuting in 1988, the series focused on a young Clark Kent, played by John Hames Newton, who battles the forces of evil as the Boy of Steel. Early in the program's run, this mostly meant non-superpowered individuals like drug dealers, as the creators were dedicated to saving as much money as possible. The result was a show that created a less than authentic Superman experience, but the series still grew a loyal collection of fans. Unfortunately, the tight budget apparently extended to maintaining a cheap cast when it came time to shoot Season 2. Newton told the Superman homepage, "It was my choice to leave the Superboy series. The producers asked me back repeatedly. I asked for a small raise, 20%, which had been previously promised to me and then retracted when the second season was to start." Newton went on to explain that his demands were partly due to the dangerous stunts he had to engage in, which he felt necessitated greater pay. Newton was out, so Gerard Christopher came in to portray Clark Kent for the 3 subsequent seasons. That wasn't the only change either. The show was rebranded to The Adventures of Superboy, and Lex Luthor's original actor, Scott James Wells, was replaced by Sherman Howard. Michael O'Hare appeared on numerous TV series throughout the 80s, but in 1992, he landed what could have been the role of a lifetime as Commander Jeffrey Sinclair on Babylon 5. Unfortunately, O'Hare's role was reduced from the lead following the first season. He'd appear in smaller capacities across seasons 2 and 3 until his character was written off the show entirely. At the time, no concrete reason was given as to why this happened, but following O'Hare's death in 2012, Babylon 5 creator J. Michael Straczynski came forward with the real story. Straczynski told the Archive of American Television that O'Hare suffered from severe mental health problems early in the show's run, including paranoid delusions and hallucinations to the point where it was difficult for him to work. Straczynski told O'Hare he would be willing to suspend production so that he could get help, but O'Hare didn't want the cast and crew to be out of work that long. Babylon 5 continued, with Bruce Boxleitner taking over command of the station as Captain John Sheridan. O'Hare formally retired from acting in 2000, and Straczynski kept the story secret until after the actor's death. Straczynski ended his interview by saying, "We lost a number of cast members from the show, and that one was the most tragic. He fought so hard to make that work and to come back, and it's a terrible loss."
Stay in formation. Hold the line. No one gets through, no matter what.
Charlie Sheen may have experienced one of the most notable TV firings of all time. From 2003 to 2011, he held the lead role of Charlie Harper on the mega-successful sitcom 2.5 Men. When season 8 came around, Sheen was reportedly earning around $1.8 million per episode, making him one of the highest-paid TV actors at the time. But Sheen was also dealing with drug abuse, and his admittance into a treatment program cut season 8's episode count short. Once production shut down, Sheen made inflammatory public statements toward the show's creator, Chuck Lorre, hurling anti-Semitic comments and referring to Lorre as a stupid, stupid little man. It didn't take long for Sheen to be fired from 2.5 Men. Charlie Harper was believed to be killed off on the show, and his ghost was played by Kathy Bates during one episode. Ashton Kutcher was brought on to play Walden Schmidt, the best friend to Charlie's brother, Alan Harper. Despite being fired, Sheen's presence and falling out loomed large over the rest of 2.5 Men, to the point where Charlie returned, visible from behind, only to be crushed by a falling piano. Sheen and Lorre eventually ended their feud, and Sheen would later publicly admit that he regretted the behavior that led to his premature departure. With a recipe consisting of equal parts raunchy humor and existential turmoil, Rick and Morty quickly became an animated juggernaut. It was all spearheaded by co-creators Dan Harmon, who previously made Community, and Justin Roiland, who provided many of the show's voices, including those of the title characters. But Roiland's time working on the show ended in 2023 when it was discovered that he had been accused of domestic violence in 2020. The charges were eventually dropped due to insufficient evidence, but Harmon revealed that the two had last spoken in 2019. It may seem easy to recast a voice actor who isn't physically present on the screen, but there was some backlash from fans who believed the characters' voices were too unique to replace. Ultimately, that wasn't an issue, as the show brought on Ian Cardoni and Harry Belden to voice Rick and Morty, respectively, starting with Season 7. In the new episodes, their voices fit seamlessly with the characters, which bodes well for the future of the show.
It's so nice that we're talking, you know, all talking because we're a family and everything, and this is a good time we're having.
The series Solar Opposites, which Roiland also co-created and voiced a lead character in, pulled a similar maneuver. Roiland was fired, and Dan Stevens was brought in to play the alien scientist Corvo. But instead of a sound-alike performance, the show had Corvo permanently gain a British accent after recovering from a dart-throwing accident.
Wait, is his voice just gonna be like that from now on?
Yeah, but it sounds pretty much the same to me. Nobody's gonna notice.
The recasting of Clayton Moore on the Lone Ranger, which ran from 1949 to 1957, remains somewhat shrouded in mystery. Moore played the beloved hero until 1952, when he was replaced for a year by John Hart. Attempts have been made to determine why the Lone Ranger needed to be recast, and the most anyone can seem to find is that it appears to have come down to a contract dispute. One report suggests Moore wanted a greater cut of Lone Ranger merchandise since the show and character were big hits. But this theory has been placed into question, as Moore claimed in his autobiography that he wasn't really sure why he was let go. Regardless of what happened, Hart took the role over from 1952 to 1953. At that point, Moore was brought back on until the series ended. Other than some vague reports and interviews that are now all but impossible to track down, it's difficult to pinpoint a precise reason why Moore left and then returned, but it was almost certainly about money.